The Productive Dentist Academy Podcast Network.
I would challenge you right away to tell us what your mission statement is, or not tell us, tell yourself, do you really know what it is? And you might say, yes, I wrote it. I know what it is. I kind of can say most of it in my head. Now ask your team, and you might be surprised that chances are that few, if any, will know it. And even fewer will be able to recite it word for word.
Thanks for tuning in to the Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson. My co-host Sara Hansen and I interview real dentists and experts who grow their dental practices using authentic marketing in a way that you can remember, repeat, and use in your own practice to get the patients you deserve. Let's dive in.
Hey, Regan.
Hey, Sara.
Hey, so this week was especially fun for me because you were able to join me on some phone calls with some doctors where we talked strategy and their concern. And, this is a really common conversation that you and I have. And what it sounds like is doctors will say our marketing isn't working or they're frustrated by it. And then we start looking under the hood of the practice. And what we realize and, walk the doctor through is it's not necessarily an ad by itself that's not working. But the bigger question is those systems. Were they set up? Is the team following the systems? How did you like being on that call this week with me where we were able to kind of talk about that? What did you discover?
It puts my passion right at the front because everyone deserves to have marketing that works. And
Yeah.
not every marketing agency is an evil entity just trying to take your money. I think everyone has really good intentions with the products and services that they offer dentistry in general, from the software that you use to the technology that you choose to put in to the office design and how it's created. So
Yeah.
I think if we put everyone's best interests at heart and believe the best in others, I don't think that it is inherently just we tried this marketing and the company failed us in some way. What I find is that great practices that suffer with marketing that isn't working, it's a
Mhm.
symptom. And you were so articulate at explaining that marketing is a system. I love your philosophy for how you think of marketing because, as Fred Joyle says, everything is
Y-
marketing. And
Yes.
it really behooves us to pop the hood and take a look at something deeper. So if you're listening right now and you think you're spending a lot on marketing and it's not giving you the results that you deserve, this is the
Mhm.
episode for you, because we are going to go through some of the things that you can specifically look at to give a little self-diagnosis as to what may be the bigger problem, or if it is truly, the company that you're working with, or how you're deploying marketing within your own
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we look at marketing, and Reagan, I heard you say this week, when we look at it as, well, we're doing Google ads. That's not a marketing campaign. That is a tactic. And that is where I think so many practices are thinking that their marketing campaign is a specific tactic. But what we know about marketing, and Reagan, we've been talking about it for months, is marketing is all encompassing. It is the complete patient experience from the time they see your ad or they hear about you in the community, to the first phone call, to the hygiene appointment, to the financial options that are provided, to the follow up, to the experience, to the way that they're made to feel when they're in the practice. That is your full marketing strategy. And when we get hyper focused on just a tactic of that, then you could have another part that is not working, as we would say. And we don't know because all we know is we're paying money for an ad and we're not getting the patients that we necessarily want. And so I would love to explore more today and talk about, like, what do some of those internal systems look like, and what causes those Google ads or those external campaigns to not be as successful as they could. It's about looking at marketing in a totally different way than I think we're used to.
Can you imagine if our dentist looked in our mouth and they just looked at the individual tooth and said, yeah, we work on this tooth,
Yeah.
but we're not going to pay attention to how that tooth is going to show up in relation to the rest of the teeth in the mouth,
Right.
or in relation to how the jaw functions and how the jaw is placed. I think, or look at the gum tissue and kind of the health
Yeah.
of the gum tissue, or take into account the genetics that that person has, or the other risk factors that are in play. We know the most, incredible dentists really are great at understanding the full picture. And for me, that is how we look at marketing, is the exact same way. We don't just look at a website, or we don't just look at Google Ads, and you shouldn't either. But it is so overwhelming at times when you are a
It
dentist who is working on being
Yes.
clinically proficient. You are a manager of multiple employees, sometimes multiple locations as well. You are a mentor to your associates. You have HR discussions. You're responsible for the recruitment, or at least the final hiring decision, and compliance, and oftentimes a building owner as well. So there are so many things on your plate that marketing often just falls to that bottom of the pile, and it turns into, yeah, we
Yeah.
have a website, or yeah, we do some Google ads here and there. And that is the equation to, yes, I worked on this one tooth and I didn't take anything else into account. And it's definitely not to be judgy on you. It's just the amount that you have on your plate right now. So
Yeah.
tell me from your beautiful mind, Sarah, how you approach marketing as a system that's
Yeah.
different than just focusing on the tactic.
Yeah, when we look at marketing as an entire system within the practice, we are not just focusing on the attraction strategies themselves. So it's not just about the website, it's not just about Google Ads, it's not about social media. Yes, that is a component of it. But when we look at marketing as a system within your practice, it's going to look different. So, what community opportunities are we invested in, or are we participating in? One of the conversations that I had this week with a doctor is they have such a beautiful niche practice where they do specific things that not a lot of dentists do. And they are ideal for working with other practitioners that focus on really full body health. And that's a huge opportunity because there are patients looking for that. They just don't know, right? That full marketing system is looking at internal reactivation, recall, it's looking at financial options, it's looking at the website messaging. So it is really going through the entire patient journey, but implementing that system within your practice is looking at if a patient is coming from an external source. If we follow that patient through the patient journey, what happened to that patient? Did they fall off somewhere? Did they call the practice but they didn't schedule? Did they call the practice, come in for an appointment, but then not accept treatment? Right. So, understanding that patient and where they're going through and where a breakdown could potentially come in, that's where I tell doctors, like, we've got to see the data behind it to then understand where is that breakdown happening within that marketing funnel, because it may not be your marketing. It might be something in that patient journey that happened internally that we're not even aware of.
Whew. From the brand architecture standpoint, the
Yeah.
messaging to me is what is crucial as a through line through that system. So you spoke a lot to me. I hear a lot of the data components of it, which is so critical. The data telling
Mhm.
us what reality is in the practice today. So looking at the analytics, and seeing what the data is actually telling us, and then from the emotional driven side, the story driven side, what is the core theme that's present from the moment that somebody hears your practice name to the time that they have left the appointment and they're ready to go into a recare cycle. It's
Yeah.
really important that all of those intersections create a consistent messaging experience, so that they have the chance to hear it more than once. And that's, to me, a red flag is when we do some Google ads or we do a website, that person has a hit or miss as to what type of messaging is going to be going out, because someone focused specifically on performance marketing, for example, like Google ads, we know that they are going to put in tried and true methods. So that could be
Yeah.
a new patient special offer, which is, it works, and at the same time it's often the lowest common denominator. It's a new patient special that pushes everything down to cost, which is like your
Yes.
weakest position to be in
Yes.
possible because you are just working off of data alone and no story
Mhm.
gets to come through. Another thing that you and I talk about often, and you listening, I would challenge you right away to tell us what your mission statement is, or not tell us, tell yourself, do you
Yeah.
really know what it is? And you might say, yes, I wrote it. I know what it is. I kind of can say most of it in my head. Now ask your team, and you might be surprised that chances are that
Mhm.
few, if any, will know it. And even fewer will be able to recite it word for word. That is a good red flag to tell you that your marketing is not going to stand a good chance of being successful because the messaging isn't memorized. It's not truly felt. It's likely not being played out and demonstrated to
Yeah.
your current patients every single day as well. So when I think of marketing as a system, I think of the logistics, the transactional elements, the data, which you're
Mhm.
so good at, Sarah. And then I think of the brand messaging that goes throughout each of those intersections and how is it painting a cohesive story so that those neurological pathways can start to be built so that patients will start to equate you with the type of care that you really ultimately want to deliver.
Okay, so Reagan, as a brand architect, because this is where your genius shines, what does that look like then in a practice when we say it need that message, that brand needs to be congruent? Like,
Mhm.
what if a doctor's like, well, what does that mean? Tell us what that looks like. Give us some examples.
Okay, so let's stick on the mission statement since I've been
Yes.
passionate about that this week. I've had multiple interviews around that. Many mission statements try to put it's like opening a junk drawer because they want everything to be in it. So they want to talk about all of the
Mm,
different ways that they serve patients and all of the different things that they believe in, which is good. Oftentimes, the words used because dental practices are still dental practices. You won't use completely unique words, but you'll use vague words. So if if in your mission statement, health is part of your statement, what does that mean? Even if you say best health or you say
mhm.
wellness, what does that mean to this practice? How does that really definitively show up? So the mission statements that we create are very, very simple, but they have an important third piece component, and that component helps motivate the team get up every day, want to put their pants on and run into the office because they're serving a true mission. Like
Yeah.
think about missions, think about military missions, right? I mean, you have a goal, you have a defined
Yes.
goal. There is something that you are either fighting or you're making the world a better place, and you're giving them a reason to get up and push forward. And protecting freedom is a fantastic mission, right? Like you're going to go to work because you are protecting freedom. So how do we
Yeah.
apply that to a dental practice? Well, we get really clear about how we define the words that matter to you. Uh, so in terms of putting this into an overall marketing strategy, so let's say, for example, I go to your Google reviews and I see that like 50 patients have used the word comfortable. You're really
Mhm.
good at making us comfortable. We take that particular word and we turn it into a characteristic or a value.
Yeah.
And that particular word, which your patients are already saying, starts to show up in messaging at every single touch point. So even if you're working with an SEO company and a Google Ads company that wants to use those specific attention getters, if you will,
Ooh,
you
yeah.
can still incorporate your core value word, your characteristic that you're known for. Here's where it connects. I end up seeing an ad, right? And I see the special on it. Whatever it does make me click over to it, but I see the word comfortable in it. And then my next step as a consumer is, well, I want to see like what are the reviews of this particular practice. So I click over and I see a whole bunch saying the word comfortable. Okay, I guess I'll go to the website and maybe I'll go ahead and take a look there, take a look at the about us because we know the about us page. Like, what does the
Yep.
team look like? We show up there and we hear stories about people being comfortable. We see the word comfortable showing up. Okay. All right. I'm kind of hooked. I'm going to give them a call.
Ye
I pick up, and I give a call. And the first person that says, hello, welcome to XYZ Smiles. We care about your comfort. Like, those touches every step along the way and demonstrating what comfort means in our definition. So comfortable may mean just in as little pain as possible, Or comfort can mean we offer you a blanket. Comfort could mean,
Mhm.
we greet you by name at the door and we make sure that, the temperature is adjusted and you have a beverage in your hand. So working with your team to understand what your key values really mean is really important. And that's how you pull it through an entire system. And then if you were to break it down into a team execution level, if we believe in comfort, how does that show up in all of the jobs that we do, including when we're reaching out to patients who've had treatment presented and perhaps they
Yeah.
haven't said yes yet? So
Mhm.
how do we keep their comfort in mind when we're communicating with them? And that could mean, that we ask them their preferences. Do they prefer text messages, written communication, emails, phone calls? Like, what is their preferred thing? And then knowing that it helps them be comfortable if we're able to communicate with them in a way that they prefer.
I loved everything you just said because it's that those are the pieces that I think are missing in marketing so many times is that again, we have a team, an SEO team create a website, but we're not sure what our own marketing message is, right? And so we go to what we know as
Mhm.
dental, providers. We talk about technology, we talk about all the cool stuff we have, we talk about, the typical we treat you like family, right? Or whatever that
Yes.
looks like in the marketing message. But that's where it becomes so generic for these
Yeah.
patients. And what the patients are looking for is what else? How does this speak to me? Why do I want to choose them over, ZZ Smile Dental down the street, right? What is that differentiating factor? And that is, I think, that piece that we're missing because if the team doesn't know who they are, who they serve, and what their key characteristics are, how is the patient ever going to know? So I
It just
love
it, it
yeah.
it makes you spend a lot more money than you have to. And I can
Yes.
already hear in my head, I want to trust a marketer. I don't do marketing. I do great dentistry. I don't
Mm,
do marketing. So I'm just going to trust you. And where you can take control of that is true. And you don't have to know marketing. You do have to know what you stand for. You do have
yes.
to know what your values are. You do have to know how to be able to tell that story so that the experts in marketing can do a great job for you.
Yes.
It feels so transactional at times, and I'm not a fan of the word silo, but it really is treated like a silo. I just want X number of patients, and then
Yes.
the conversation is, I want X number of patients right for me. There's where you stop. Let's really dig into what the right patients for me look like. And then Sarah, your brilliance is finding where those patients are and creating those campaigns that make sure that you have enough touches in place, because the ideal candidates might not be searching for the same terms that another, company might be recommending that you do. But not
Yep.
only that, what happens when you're in an oversaturated area and it's highly competitive and the practice doesn't have the budget allotment to be able to compete
Yes.
and purchase the amount of inventory required to get the results? Then what do you do? I mean, do you feel like it's very frustrating?
Yes. Yeah, and I hear those conversations all the time, frustrating with marketing. But again, that is why it cannot be a one-off thing. It cannot be, true marketing strategies in quotation systems has to encompass so many things than just external marketing. And we are missing so many opportunities to really attract the patients that the practice wants and that the doctor wants to see by being hyper focused on one tactic or one type of marketing campaign, as we would call that. But what is so great about marketing is there is not a one size fits all. And the other piece that is so fun about marketing is when you start to pull those pieces through, like you said, the bridging of the messaging with all the tactics and how that actually shows up. What tends to happen is now the office is starting to see the patients they really want.
Mhm.
And it now becomes this ripple effect because they're attracting the patients that they want. The patients are referring other patients like them. And it becomes this like really incredible practice with the doctor's happy, the team's happy, the patients are happy. And that is the ultimate goal of marketing. But growing a practice through marketing is not just new patients. It is not new patients. And I think that within that is probably the line I get the most. Doctors will come to me and say, "Sarah, we need to grow the practice. I just need more new patients." And
Oh,
it's like, well, yes, you might need some more patients. What else? How else can we look at opportunities within the area? And it might be that, hey, we've got to go a little further out. So, what do those tactics look like, to attract the ideal patients? And that's where marketing becomes really fun, is not just doing the same old things, but getting really creative.
mhm.
Those
Oh,
are the
listener,
strategies I love.
yeah, if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, your
Yeah.
like philosophy, you are Moneyball. Like Phoenix Dental Agency's like whole position on marketing is the Moneyball because nobody wants to spend a ton of money on marketing and
No.
not see the ROI, and it's a risk, and you often get burned in the past. So there's so much tension around it that even energetically, it can make marketing a difficult task to be successful at
Yeah.
because of all the fear that's surrounding it and the loss that can be surrounding it. So tell me what internal systems you look at, especially Sarah, with all of your experience in office management
Yeah.
in the dental practice. What internal systems can our listeners like check before even throwing money at external marketing campaigns?
Yes. So I'm going to separate the two just a little bit. Internal systems, I would say the ones that you have the most control over, doctors. The biggest things to look at that provide the biggest growth for marketing internally would be your reviews. So asking for reviews, right? Referrals. Do you have an established referral program? Is it consistent? That's the key word. Is it consistent? Because I can tell you that probably 8 out of 10 practices that I talk to, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, we used to do a thing, but we're
Oh
not
gosh, I
really
hear that all
consistent
the
about it."
time.
Right?
Yes. And does
Right?
it follow state
And
guidelines?
does it follow state guidelines? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the other piece. So, those are the two. But then the biggest thing, doctors, is I've said this so many times, do not pay for new patients when you have $1 million plus sitting in your practice of revenue from patients that just never said yes. There was something through that patient journey that there was a disconnect somewhere within what they experienced. They didn't say yes, but yet they still haven't dropped you as their dentist, right? So they need to be reminded that you are the place, that you've got options for them, whatever that looks like. So internally, those are the three biggest ones that I would recommend. Those are the ones that team members can be involved. You have those internal systems, but create them to be consistent. And then separately, I would say community. We are missing so many community pieces of, just showing up, supporting local teams. I mean, I know with my own kids, there's so many opportunities to sponsor their teams and to provide different things and to show up, right? Again, looking at just all those opportunities within the community. So those are the two biggest things that doctors, you really can be, I'd say, very strategic in, but also like it's just about who you are, right? Bring that to your team. Hey team, what community opportunities are you guys seeing out there? Is there something with your kids that we can support, right? That would very much align with the practice and where they're going with all of that.
The green flag for community involvement, in my opinion, is consistency and making a commitment to plant roots.
Yes.
It's like growing a plant. It really is. You have to water it and you have to tend to it. A red flag is I tried this one thing one time, it didn't work,
Yes.
so I killed it. That is one of the worst things you can
Yes.
do for your marketing efforts because you haven't given it any chance to mature, any chance. You can't just have one event and be like, okay, this is, I mean, hugely
Yeah.
successful if nobody knows you. You know how clicky people can be and groups can be, and it takes time to
Yes.
to really grow those relationships within it. So choosing, I like where you were going with like, if you have children and you want to do something that's sports oriented and want to support in that way, choosing something that one, it's a community event that you can get behind, that you believe in and that you enjoy,
Yes.
number one. And then number two, know that it's going to be a more than a one-time thing.
Mhm.
It needs to
Mhm.
be something that goes and grows with you and is something that you can genuinely people know if you subconsciously you can feel it if it's a I'm showing up because I just know I'm supposed to do this thing and I don't know if it's going to work versus I am so happy to be here. I have a child that's here, or
Yes.
I love gardening and I'm part of this, community
Yeah.
gardening group and I love feeding people. Like if it's something like that, your energetic level
Yes.
subconsciously communicates long before your voice ever says a word or your marketing material even says anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So Regan, when I worked for a dentist one time, and when he wasn't practicing dentistry, he was on the golf course. Loved golfing. And what was really cool is we were able to find events that we could sponsor, right? That he was already going to be attending. But then the other piece that was cool is he started like meeting people on the golf course, right? And being part of these events and all these things. And I can't tell you how many patients came in, even drove 30, 40 minutes to come to the practice because, oh, hey, I met doctor on the golf course, and
Yep.
we happened to talk, about what do we do, and then I told him, oh, hey, I have a tooth that's really bugging me, and so it's like those are the things that the doctor was already doing, right? It was very much a part of him, and his patients knew that he loved to golf. He was a golfer. I mean, we lived in Arizona, right? There's golf courses everywhere. So it was a huge deal, but it was very much on brand for him. Like he didn't go outside his comfort zone. He did something that he loved to do anyways, but brought that into, in internal slash community event that made sense for the practice. And so those are the type of opportunities that are easy for our teams or the doctors to really look at and say, hey, what are things I love to do outside of being a dentist? Who's my network? Where do I get to know people? What does that look like? And that is how you can get really awesome community campaigns going. And then to your point, Regan, it does need to be not a one-time event. We know marketing touch points on average are what, 6 to 8, sometimes even 10, 12 marketing touch points before someone takes action. So it is something that you want to keep top of mind, keep that consistency going, even if right in the beginning maybe you don't get a great ROI, but it's about investing in that strategy and keeping it consistent.
One of the things that you talk about a lot, Sarah, is making sure that people know so that they can have the opportunity to participate. And
Mhm.
so many times marketing can also be confused with sales, and
Yeah.
sales feels pushy and we often think why would they care? So I think a community event is a super good example of how we can pull this through because if
Mhm.
you're going to attend, is that event listed on your website anywhere? Do people know when
Ye-
they visit? Let's think about the intersections. Do they know
Yes.
that you are going to be there on the website? When they walk in the practice, is there anything, even like, a little flyer or something that says, hey, we're going to be at the farmer's market on this date and time so that patients that are coming in can see that and know that? Is it something that's being shouted out in your social media so
Yeah.
that people know that you're going to be there and you could tag if you're doing a farmer's market, for example, say you really love a soap company or you really love another vendor that's going to be there. Are you engaging
Yes.
with that
Yeah.
brand in a unique way so that you're increasing your odds at actually being able to get in front? Because I think that's just such a big thing is it's hard to get in front of eyeballs. And the reality is we do get in front of eyeballs, but how many times are we getting in front of those eyeballs before it
Yes.
really sticks and they can say,
Mhm.
oh, okay, we're gonna be there. And again, from the messaging standpoint, if
Yeah.
your core value is comfort, how are you showing up to that event
Yes.
and giving the people there a comfortable experience?
Yep.
That's something that you can work through with your team, and you want to make sure that that is present. So, everything you do, community events included, should definitely demonstrate your core values in play. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to do all 10 of them. Choose the one that is the most
Yes.
important to you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because when you get focused on the one, now it becomes so easy to be like, okay, for example, with what I shared about the doctor who was a big golfer. If his core value at that time was comfort, why not have some branded little fans that on
Right?
the
If it's gonna
golf
be
course,
hot.
right? Right.
Yes.
If it's like a hot, summer day in Phoenix, right? What does that look like? And how, so again, there's so many fun, creative ways to tie in your core values to what you do into marketing strategies. But that I think it can be so fun, but also that is such a crucial piece.
Mhm.
And, but yet it's so overlooked, you know?
Well, I think we can talk demographics with that too, because it's almost like a
Yeah.
Venn diagram. So, doctor,
Oh,
you have
yes.
to be passionate, especially if you're going out in the community. But in general, you have to be passionate about what you believe in. And then there's the patient, and then in the intersection in the
Yes.
middle, to me, that is where we choose which events to attend and
Yes.
what marketing channels we engage in. So, how do you, when you pull all of your psychographics, demographics, market research, competitive analysis, what are you looking for in creating a strategy as opposed to
Yeah.
a tactic?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I do is I ask the doctor, who's your ideal patient? Describe them to me. What do they look like? How do they, is it a mom with kids? Is it an older patient because you like to do a lot of all on fours, right? Are they a patient that has gone through a lot of dental trauma, or are they healthy? Like what? So I ask a lot of questions first. I want to understand, who does the doctor want to attract? What does
Mhm.
that patient look like? Then yes, then we start pulling that information. It is so interesting to me because a lot of things come out with understanding your demographics, the psychographics, understanding how your patients consume media, how what their buying tendencies are, is actually shapes a strategy. And that is a missing piece that I think a lot of marketing companies don't do. If the doctor says to me, "Hey, Sarah, I really want to attract patients from 60 plus, right? I want to do dentures and I want to do all on fours and I want to do things like that." And then they tell me that, previously they did TikTok ads and nothing's working. And so they're frustrated with marketing. I'm going to say, well, I'm sure it wasn't working because your ideal patient and your marketing campaign are not aligned. And so when we look at the demographics and understand our patients, how they consume media, but also even their financial situation, if we are marketing to patients that, are dual income, maybe, don't spend a lot on their healthcare because they just don't have a lot of money, then you need to be focusing on that messaging. Do you have financial options? Because if we know your patients are not going to accept treatment, not because they don't value it, but because they simply don't have the income, then that's going to be, a break moment in that patient journey. But if you know that, hey, these patients need to have financial options in order for them to accept treatment, and you know that about your demographic, now you can provide them with what they need and the solutions to say yes to care. If you want to attract the older demographic, we're going to look at mailers. We're going to look at Facebook campaigns, right? We're not going to be doing ads on TikTok because we don't have that generation on TikTok, right? If we want middle-aged moms for cosmetic dentistry, we're going to Hulu, we're going to Instagram, right? We're doing those different things. We may be working with influencers, right? In the area. So there's just so many opportunities, but understanding your ideal patient and then even further how they consume media is so crucial to marketing working, because if we don't understand how they consume it, how can we now create a strategy?
The I would love for you to talk to us about your approach to attracting patients. Like, what if a practice comes and to you and says, here is my perfect ideal patient, and they are very
Mhm.
specific, and you find out that they are 20 or 30 or even 40 minutes away.
Yeah. I So again, then this is how we have to look at marketing and say, okay, we know that they're going to have to drive.
Hmm.
So we have to, that messaging is more important than it ever has been, because they're not going to come to you for convenience, because it's not convenient for them, right? To have to drive 45 minutes is not convenient. However, we want to identify with what their needs are. And that is where the patient story, the transformation, we cannot just market and say, hey, voted very best dentist, because we have, great technology. What is that hook for that patient? How do we speak to them? What's important to those patients? That is your messaging. But then also that may change your marketing budget, right? So again, understanding now we have to go further out. We might look at different types of marketing campaigns because now we have to convince them, we have to establish trust right away. It can't be just a static ad on a platform somewhere. We've got to have video, we've got to have commercials, we've got to have some type of like interaction with the team. The patient has to see you and feel you, hear the story. So your marketing tactics will look very different than attracting a patient that's within 3 minutes of the practice.
Yes, I love that you said video. One of my
Yeah.
healthcare providers is it's a 30 to 40-minute drive depending on traffic away from
Uh-huh.
me. And I try to stay close, obviously. Like I'm a busy career woman and a busy mom and a
Right.
wife. And so I've always tried to keep it closer. However, this practice had been referred to me so many times from friends of mine that I thought this will really behoove me to look into it. So even with the recommendations from my friends, which is like the strongest you can get, I still went to the website anyway, and it looked good. Like it said,
Yeah.
I loved the messaging, but as I scrolled down, there was a video, and the thumbnail was a woman that I know, like in our community, and I really respect her. And I was like, what is
Mm.
she doing on here? So I clicked play to watch the video, and hearing in her words, she's around my age, that helped like push me over the edge.
Yeah.
And I looked at their reviews, that every little micro thing, I looked at their social media, just kept
Yes.
building trust. By the time I saw that though, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous that I would ever hesitate to drive. And that's what got me to pick up the phone. And then we're in a conversation of value and outcomes, and
Yep.
definitely not, is it the cheapest new patient visit possible? It completely shifted my own internal conversation to how I
Yes.
approach healthcare.
I am so glad you shared that because like that is those are some of the things that I get really passionate about is like, I mean, the last podcast I shared about, the farmer's dog. It is
Yeah.
so emotional, right? For our
Yeah.
patients. And I think that because we do this every day, we forget those things, but that is what our patients are looking for. And it's like I can say all day long, doctors, get authentic media, take every stock photo off your website, off your ads, right? Do not have them. That is what patients need to see you, feel you. And I love that you shared that was what took you like, okay, I'm doing it because that piece is so powerful. And, but yet it is an investment, doctors. It is like, to have a photographer come out and then, oh crap, now we had a change of a team member and now our team photos outdated. I understand it's hard to want to make an investment like that. But when we talk about a patient, basically one video is the patient saying yes and a patient not scheduling and moving on. I mean, how do you put a price on that? You can't,
Mm-mm.
right? Like these are the pieces that are so important to the marketing. And again, patients want to know who you are. They want to know what you sound like. They want to know what your office is like. They want to hear patient stories. Those are so many pieces that they can't get from a photo of a stock patient, right? They don't know anything about you. And yet we're asking them to trust us with their health. We're asking them to trust us with their finances. Like we're asking them to do all these things. And yet we can't even bother to be like, hey, I'm Dr. Jones. Here's what I want patients to feel when they come into my practice, right? Like when we think about it like that, it's so easy to just be able to have what our patients are looking for.
Okay, can we talk social media for a second?
Yes. Oh,
Because I
please.
want to equate it to a system and getting your investment out of it. So people
Yeah.
often will say, yes, I know I need to do social media. I know I
Yeah.
need to do it. And when you even put that energetic towards it, I know I need to. It becomes something like eating our broccoli.
Yeah.
And what I find when I go in to do a business audit, is I definitely will see what it looks like when you're eating broccoli. I see blog posts and I see no
Mhm.
engagement. And then I see happy donut day, happy hygienist day. Like that's it. And nothing else. Like there's
Yeah.
it's there because it needs to be there, not because the office is passionate about sharing the story that way. And
Yeah.
one of the best accounts that I see is treating it like a telephone, like where they can actually engage with the community. So, for example, as a system, every week, some of the best practices that I see, they will do a "Did you know" series. So
Mhm.
they will be just walking, maybe just walking to the practice with the iPhone on. So it's not polished video. It's not stock images. It's just the doctor walking into the practice. And it's like, God, have you ever woken up and your jaw just feels tight in the morning? You know what that
Mhm.
actually is a symptom of? And then they will go in and give the answer. And the bridge over is, hey, if you're suffering with this and you're kind of concerned, give us a call. Debbie's at the front desk. She'll be happy to take your call
Yeah.
and help you figure that out. That making an investment as part of a system, like we are going to do this
Yes.
consistently. The team, this is who
Yes.
is responsible for it. This is who is going to post it. And hiring any external social media organization, they can get you so far, but they can't force you to do things. And it shows up if you don't care. And
Yeah.
maybe, doctor, you're too busy, but you happen to have someone on your team that is very passionate about communicating through social media and can be a
Yep.
great conduit for you. So it is a channel that you can utilize and really get a lot of mileage out of. Same example with the cross pollination. So if you say
Yes.
you're what if you're in a strip mall and there is, a smoothie shop at one side and a massage aesthetics place down a couple
Yes.
floors down. What if you guys all talked to each other and did a special promotion together for spring and then
Yes.
all shared each other's posts and talked about it? So it's really about, I think, inviting people in, but give me something of value because I am going to equate that value as a micro moment of touch. So what do you tell practices when they say, okay, I know I need to do social media? And like you said, you started, I think you gave everybody a good foundation. Don't go on TikTok just because it's a platform you know how to use, but
Yeah.
maybe your ideal patient isn't there.
Yes.
What do you tell practices, or what's your recommendation for how to use the social media that you do
Yeah.
choose?
Yeah, social media is not expensive. Now, if you want to boost, a post or you want to do those other things, but social media, again, to just have a online presence from the team, you guys, it doesn't cost you anything to you can open a free Canva account, you can upload a few photos that you all take with your phones, right? What social media is keeping you in front of them. That's what it's used for. It is now creating this opportunity for you to have, maybe even a fun post. So we're going to celebrate Debbie, at the front desk and happy birthday to Debbie, right? And then what that does is your patients that follow you, well, they're like, oh, I love Debbie. Now they're going to comment, happy
So
birthday,
true.
Debbie. She's the best. And guess what? Their friends now see that someone said happy birthday, Debbie. So again, by one little post, your reach can be so big and it doesn't cost you anything. What I recommend to teams though is, let's say that you post something and your patients go nuts about it, right? Maybe it's you know building a house for Habitat for Humanity. Maybe it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, whatever that looks like. Maybe it is why do we floss every day? Whatever that looks like, you can tell, look at Meta, you can tell by the engagement if that is something that patients love. Why not put $10 at it and boost it, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
so simple to do. So again, social media, doctors, is one of those things that it it has to be consistent and it has to be authentic. So, just your generic, again, stock photos or generic, looking like happy teeth, like they want to see you. Like, I cannot stress that enough. They want to hear your voice. They want to see your movements. They want to see the team. They want to know what you guys are doing. Those are those pieces that are really so simple. It just takes somebody to do it. um that's where it falls a lot, Reagan, really, in practices, is again, it becomes one of those things that, oh yeah, we used to do that. Oh, yeah, we used to have a team member that did that, but that is such an awesome piece. Social media is powerful. Whether we love it or we hate it, it is still a very powerful thing. And let's say maybe, a patient has seen some of your posts come up from time to time, but they don't need a dentist. And then one weekend, their tooth starts to hurt and they happen to be scrolling through social media. And there you are, because again, you've interacted with them, right? Now they're going to take action. So again, it is about the consistency of what you're doing.
And what I love about this is it's also an opportunity again to bring forward your core values. And so
Yes.
when that tooth is hurting or when that, it's time, right? It's time. They might be anxious. They might be fearful of it. They will think of the dentist that makes you comfortable. And social media is the most beautiful way. I like the flossing angle
Yeah.
because nobody likes flossing. Nobody enjoys it. Everybody tries to avoid it. People lie. Like, let's say me.
Yeah. Well, okay.
My
Me too.
hygienist, right. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't think about this as a post, but it would be great. So I spoke to my hygienist about it and he said, "Have you ever tried a water pick?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no, I've never tried that." And he goes, "You might find that more comfortable." So
Yeah.
think about even applying that core value to the patient experience from a
Yes.
clinical standpoint. Share that on social media. Do you hate flossing? Yeah, we do too, and so does everybody else. Have you ever tried a water pick? We often find that patients tell us it's more comfortable. What do you think? And
Right.
it's a way to educate people, and it's a way to relate to people and connect and be honest about it. Like, we're going to tell you to floss every day. We know you don't
Yep.
like it. Here's a way that we could probably make it better for you. And I think so connecting, relating, and educating. So
Yep.
when it comes to that time, oh yeah, they're not gonna judge me, and they're going to understand that maybe I don't love to do this, and they're gonna make it
Yes.
comfortable for me.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. It's the relating. And in fact, there was speaking of relating, I don't know if you remember this, Reagan, Chad, our previous co-host Chad,
Dr.
who we
Chad
love.
Johnson, previous
Dr.
co-host of Everyday
Chad.
Practices.
Oh, Chad, I
Shout out
miss you.
Chad.
Yeah, Chatty Chad.
And Dean.
So,
Let's shout out Dean
and
too. Dean's
Dean,
his
his
social media
marketing guy.
manager. Yeah.
So this is what I was going to bring up. What was so funny is they did a series on, and chat, you guys go to Veranda Dentistry. If you have not followed Chad on social media, he is a riot. Like, talk about a guy who understands how to do social media.
Yeah.
But what I love about Chad is there was a time period where they were reading Google reviews from their patients. But what they did is they had the star glasses.
Oh, that's right.
They put their star glasses on and they would read the reviews and then, do a little like something like how much they value their patients. But what I loved about that is now, so when they made it fun, totally on brand for Chad. If anyone knows Chad, he is like the greatest guy ever. But what also happened is now they're taking a Google review that someone would have to go to Google to read it. Now they're bringing it on an additional platform. So what was cool about that is now those reviews that are authentic coming from the patients who love you, your raving fans, right? Now it's coming to another platform of, hey, we're going to read our Google reviews and have a fun time and thank you for our patients and, all these things, but they made it really fun. And so now we're expanding that authentic review of the practice through other platforms. So now the patient doesn't have to go to Google to read the reviews. Now they're like, oh, hey, this patient talked about how they were afraid and now they feel comforted, right?
Mm.
So kind of bringing those core values, Reagan, back that you talked about that is a brilliant way to expand something that we know converts patients, which is authentic Google reviews, and putting that on another platform. So again, there's just so many ways that we can maximize everything we do. And that didn't cost them any money, right? It cost
Yeah.
them 5 minutes of their time to find the funny glasses, have one of the team members read the reviews. And, it created some really great content for them and really some big conversions.
Okay, so let's bring this home. Thank you, listeners, for hanging in with us here, and we hope you get a lot of value from this. You've said, pull the report on treatment that's been presented but not scheduled. Check your referral index to see
Yep.
how many referrals you're actually getting.
Yep.
Maintain your reviews health. So if you're getting, less than a review a week, I mean, how
Yeah.
long has it been since you've had a review? Or look to your Google reviews for consistency. So do you get a
Mhm.
bunch in one month and then nothing the next month? So kind of check and see how your reviews are going. How do you know, Sarah, when it's the right time to spend money on ads?
When your internal systems are backed and working. It can't be, oh, we used to do that, right? So I would say when it comes to external marketing, you have to have a really great website with proper messaging and a robust SEO strategy. When it comes to external, that is a must. You don't have to spend on Google Ads when you can generate enough growth from the practice through revenue wise by doing um, internal marketing, so the reviews, the referrals, making sure you've got high referrals, but also that community piece. Now, again, doctors, hear me loud and clear. This is something that it takes time. This is more of your organic growth, right? This is not something that you can turn on and off like a faucet. However, this is a long term value strategy that you're putting into your practice. So I would say once those systems are in place, then absolutely look out and see what you can expand with. Is it Google? Is that right for you? Is it, YouTube? Is it Hulu ads? Is it podcast commercials, radio? What does that look like? So that's what I would recommend, making sure those internal systems are set up first, the community pieces are set up first, all the things that you can do without spending a ton of money, put those in place. Then I would feel comfortable saying, okay, doctor, now let's make an investment in marketing.
Are there any major red flags that if you go in and give a brand audit
Mm.
and see internally is not set up or is underperforming, that you would do a hard stop and say, I wouldn't spend a dime on external marketing until this is fixed? What would that be?
I would say call conversion rate.
I knew it. I wasn't saying anything, so I was like, what's she gonna say? Said
We
phone
are
calls.
so aligned. Yeah, I would say call conversion rate. And I would also probably say treatment scheduling. Are from the treatment that's presented, how much of that is actually scheduling? Those are the two areas. Because again, you can spend $10,000 on Google Ads or other external marketing, but when they call the practice, if your call conversion rate is not working and you're at 20%, now you are spending far more than you have to get those patients in. And then also, I would say call conversion, treatment acceptance rate, and appointment show rate, no show rate, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. So, again, are those patients that are calling to schedule, are they now coming to the office? So, those are the ones that I would look at for sure.
Do you have any benchmarks that you typically follow?
So we like our client teams to be at 80% call conversion rate. We do a lot of call training for them. We
Mhm.
track it. Again, we know that not every patient's going to schedule, but if 80% are going to call and schedule, that's what we like teams to be at. When teams sit at 20 or 30%, what we hear in a lot of phone calls is more transactional, right? They're talking more about insurance or cost or things like that. They're not getting into relationship with these patients early on. But 80% doctors. So out of every 10 patients that call you, new patient opportunities, you want 8 of those to be scheduling from your team.
And is it 10% referrals of 10% of the amount of hygiene visits per month?
Yes, yes, yeah. So, referral index, you take the amount of hygiene visits that you have in a month. So, doctor, let's say you had 200 hygiene visits the previous month. You want 10% of that. So, 20 patients coming from other patients. So, again, we always say benchmark minimum standard is 10%. Really well oiled internal system practices, they're often at 15 or 20%, which is phenomenal. And what's great about those types of metrics, they're easy to track for the team. So you know where you're at. But the other piece is if you have 20% of your patients coming, from those hygiene because they've been having those conversations, every patient, then you don't need external marketing other than a website for online presence so they can find you, right? Great reviews, a Google business profile, but you are now getting enough patients to sustain your practice. You don't even need external marketing. And not only that, but you're getting the
External
most
marketing
loyal.
spend. That's
Yes,
what you're saying.
spend.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I want to be
external
really clear
marketing
about that.
spend.
You still will
Yes.
have visibility and you
Yes,
still will be
visibility.
communicating, but less spent by far on external
Yes.
marketing spend. Yeah.
Yes, external marketing spend. You're now not paying thousands of dollars to Google
Yeah.
because now you're attracting new patients through patients that already love you. And that level of trust has already been elevated because they're coming from their best friend who loves you and raves about you, right? So it is ultimately the best way to get new patients into your practice is from other patients. Like I could sing that for days.
I think this is brilliant. I hope listeners, this gives you a game plan. So before you spend any money on social media marketing, pay-per-click, any sort of external ad spend, that you are making sure that you can convert what it is
Mhm.
that you're actually having in practice. Oh, before we go, is there a metric for the unscheduled treatment? Or is it just as, yeah, tell me about that one, because sometimes I am shocked at how much is sitting on the books that's been
Mhm.
presented but not converted.
Yeah. Now, teams, so there's not per se a metric, right? Because every practice is going to look different. Meaning, if you have a full fee for service practice that does a lot of high reconstructive cases, you could easily have $5 million and maybe 10 patients, right?
Yeah.
Just because the treatments are so huge. So, but what I will say is, you typically will have at least 30% of those patients need to be scheduling at least. So that's your benchmark. If one third of your treatment is not scheduling for their next appointment, we want to get you at least to that point. Of course, the more um, treatment that schedules is just better for the practice, but practices you want to be at least 30% of everything that's been treatment planned scheduling. Because otherwise patients are not saying yes. And there's usually a reason why. There's usually a reason. So again, it's your job to make sure that you have enough relationship with them that you can see their signs, right? Of, hey, all of a sudden now they glazed over. Like as soon as I started talking about finances, they got a little fidgety, right? That's a sign that maybe finances are very sensitive to them. So do you have a membership plan? Do you have financial solutions for them? Do you have, options where you can talk about this in a trusting, open way that they can still get the care that they need, but also afford it? When Summer was on our podcast, she talked about this very thing that Bruce used to say, which was just ask them what their budget is. And Summer's like, no, I can't do that. But what that did is it allowed the patient to say, I want this treatment, but I really can only afford $300 a month. Well, okay, then let's find a way to work within that budget, right? So again, those are those things that, we really need to find those solutions for our patients so that they can say yes.
Well, thank you, Sarah. This is such a fun topic for both of us. And
Yes.
listeners, we hope you find great value in it. You have a really clear core value established. You're pulling it through every single step in the patient journey. And you know what red flags we pointed out today, and then what green flags to help you get on your way.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could leave us a like or a review on iTunes, or go to Productive Dentist Academy through Google and leave us a review there. We are here each week to talk about what's possible when you lead your practice with clarity and courage. If you are ready to build a business that supports your life and not the other way around, investment grade practice coaching powered by Productive Dentist Academy can help. Visit investmentgradepractice.com to schedule your free 60-minute coaching session so you can start designing the practice and lifestyle you've been dreaming about all along.